Hello, my name is Cameron Donovan. I am 34 years old and live in Albany, New York. I'm married and have 3 children. I woke up this morning thinking it was going to be a different day than yesterday. I decided to do something about a very difficult problem that had been bothering me for some time. I had an appointment with a lawyer today to explore my options. I knew there weren't many options, but I needed help to overcome this problem. There must be a way to deal with it. It's been bothering me for a while now, and by time I mean almost a year. That's how long she tormented me. You want to know what the hell I'm babbling about? I'm talking about my wife, Brittany. I call her Brit. She seems to have weekly dates with her boyfriend, or lover, or whatever you want to call him. You see, I just happened to realize that Brit was having sex with some other guy. A friend told me. Not a good friend, mind you, but one who I realized was nonetheless my friend. I was stunned when she told me. She told me because she was now this guy's girlfriend or ex-girlfriend. She came to my office. She was pretty straightforward with her words, and then, after a short discussion, and then unleashing this avalanche on me, she left. As she left my office, she turned and said she was done with her boyfriend, and then wished me luck. I'll need this. I had no idea what to do. My brain was in a flat spin state. Pilots will understand what I'm talking about. I needed to figure out how to recover from this information. So I find out that my wife has sex with some young guy every week. So what the hell should I do? I went home that night without a clue. My intuition told me not to confront her immediately, but to understand the options available to me. Was the girl who came into my office just a crazy girl talking nonsense, or was she real and trustworthy? I did not know. I solve problems at my job. I'm a business consultant. I am a CMA and CPA. I spend all day, almost every day, trying to understand complex financial and management issues and orchestrate solutions for multimillion-dollar clients. It pays well and I enjoy the work. Some people think it's boring as hell, but for me it's a challenge. I like solving difficult problems. I know what you're thinking. The weak accountant is just some boring, balding, ugly fat guy, and his wife needs to find a real man who will satisfy her needs. That my wife sticks with me for the money and security I provide. Well, that's not entirely true. I'm an inch under 6 feet tall and have thick, dark brown hair. I wear glasses. I weigh 185 pounds and probably have a few extra pounds around my waist, maybe 10 or so. And yes, I suppose I could work out more. I'm not an ugly asshole, if that's what you're thinking. So now I had the mother of all complex problems, and she was sitting across from me at the dinner table, telling me that the weekend would be busy getting the kids ready for classes, and we were invited by friends over drinks and snacks on Saturday night to go to one of our classes. I watched her mouth move, and I damn sure couldn't remember a single thing she said. No matter, I will talk to the children, and they will tell me where to take them and when. My youngest, Davy, is the easiest. He sticks to me like Velcro. He's my buddy. Brit is always up to date with the family's schedule. Without her organizational skills, the children would have ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or so she says. I met Brit at university while completing my bachelor's degree in business and accounting. I was about to graduate, and she, a year older than me, was studying basket weaving. I call it that, but officially it was a degree in design, not the design of a building, but the inside of a building. We dated, got married, and had 3 children. 2 girls and a boy. Laura is 10, Diana is 8, and David, we all call him Davy, is 5. They are all in school and have busier social lives than I ever have. What's going on with the programming of every moment of children's lives these days? When they have time to play, get out, get dirty, and have fun. There's something wrong with this, but I digress. A week later, after being exposed by a very angry young lady who came to see me, I sat in my office with a yellow legal pad, taking detailed notes about my problem. I made a general plan. Step 1, get a better understanding of the scope of the problem. This meant I needed more information. This meant that information had to be collected and sorted. This meant I needed the right resources and tools. I didn't want to bug my own house or sit in my car trying to catch my wife, so I hired the best people to do it for me. I have no idea how to do surveillance, so I made a few calls and hired the right person to give me the information I needed. The agency is one that we use from time to time for other things, but they do similar things too. Katherine Johnson was a very good investigator. She worked as a police investigator for several years and then decided to go private and work for herself. She came to my office and we spent an hour discussing what I wanted from her. I gave her a recent photo of Britt and also told her where she worked. Britt is an interior designer, so she's in and out of the office quite often. I guess this gives her a convenient excuse to meet her boyfriend whenever she wants. I told Catherine that I never saw any outward signs that Britt was cheating. She is always where she needs to be for our family at the right time. She never smells different, looks different, or acts different. We have busy lives, but we usually talk once or twice a week. I work hard to keep my wife at the forefront of my attention, both in our sex life and everywhere else. My family is very important to me. Without my family, I would be a complete failure. Right now, I'm starting to doubt my abilities as a husband. So I handed over a check for $2,500 and asked Catherine to find out what the hell my wife was doing. It took 2 weeks. All this time I stayed the course and didn't say or do anything that would tell Britt that I suspected something was wrong. It was an excruciatingly painful 2 weeks. Catherine returned with her report. This was not good. She collected evidence that Britt was meeting once a week with a guy from a wholesale furniture company her company does business with. She learned his name and some basic information about him. Dean Billings. The guy is single, and it seems, does not yet have a girlfriend who could replace the one who left him. They meet at his apartment and usually spend 2 to 3 hours together. When she leaves him, she always returns to her office. She works there until it's time to go home. She doesn't see him on days when it's her turn to pick up the kids from school. Was Britt in love with this guy? Was she planning on leaving her family for this guy? What was her plan? Catherine was able to find out what Britt was doing, not why she did it. This was a more difficult question. Will I ever get the answer to this question? This started to irritate me. Step 2, get legal advice. I know a lot of lawyers, so I called one who works for our firm to get a recommendation for a family lawyer. They gave me the name of a shark. Sharks in a blue skirt. Leanne Smith. In legal circles, she is known as an aggressive divorce lawyer who leaves no enemy alive. She almost always wins her clients' cases. She hates cheating husbands and wives. Apparently, her own husband was caught cheating with another woman and is now essentially living in a refrigerator box under a bridge. This may be an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. I scheduled an initial consultation to tell her my story and discuss my options for Britt. I took the investigator's report with me. The basics of divorce law in New York were quickly explained to me. State courts are very concerned about the welfare of children, as they should be, and generally award custody to mothers, unless there is compelling reason to decide otherwise. A good reason could be that the mother is unfit due to illness or disability, is incarcerated, or is simply a bad mother, and this is well documented. Thus, based on this, in most cases, the father must pay a significant part of his income to support the family in the usual way. This means that the father will be giving away a lot of money over many years. My kids are young, so I could expect to be paying for a very long time. It turns out that adultery doesn't really count in family law, at least not in the courts. A marriage license is simply a contract that says you agree to be bound to each other until the court says you have ended the marriage. Marriage now is essentially an agreement for two people to join forces and resources to improve the lives of both and any children that may be born. Emotions, love, and such feelings are no longer part of marriage. Who has sex with whom is not important to the court. So the fact that my wife has sex with someone other than me every week doesn't matter to the court. Very sad, but true. Where does that leave me? Well, Britt will receive both child support and spousal support, called alimony. I will get very little time with the kids, most likely every other weekend and probably a few weeks during the summer. This is not paternity. I don't know what to call it, but for me it will be hell. I love my children. I was involved in planning their arrival and fully intend to remain committed to their well-being and lives on a full-time basis. Of course, not every other weekend and 2 damn miserable weeks in the summer. No, it won't happen that way. If Britt and I separated and divorced now, the best outcome would be joint custody, which would mean the kids would live in 2 houses on a rotating basis, about half the time in each. This is not good for children. In addition, I will be paying most of the mortgage on the house and, of course, the cost of other housing for myself. If Britt and I have joint custody, the place I live will need to be big enough to accommodate the 4 of us. Goodbye to any dream of retiring before age 70. Aside from the state's and the court's underlying concerns about family breakdown, what this all meant was that Britt would be getting money from me to continue having sex with other men, even more often, and in my house. There is no way I would allow this. As you can guess, my biggest concern was the children. How their mother's need for extramarital sex affected them was a major question at the time. I did some preliminary research online to learn about the effects of infidelity on children. It's big. I wanted to do everything possible to insulate them from the consequences of Britt's affair. Leanne was quite blunt in her assessment of the impact of family law in New York State. Was it unfair? It seemed to me that this was more in favor of women in marriages with children. If there are no children, then everything becomes much more fair. Basically, it's just dividing the property in half, and then everyone goes their separate ways. The marriage is over. Easily. After my visit to the lawyer, I returned to my office, closed the door, and began to think about what to do. What did I want? I sat for 2 hours looking at my yellow pad and all my scribbles. It was all I could do not to feel like my world was falling apart. It seemed that it was so. A wave of hopelessness washed over me. I took several deep breaths and held them until I could exhale. Just before I went home, I wrote and circled at the very bottom of my notepad, "Protect children at all costs." This is what I was going to do. After all, I would have to stand up to Britt if her actions started to affect the children. It's already affected me, but it doesn't matter now. This meant I had to pretend I didn't know what she was doing. In the short term, I was successful to some extent, and then the whole problem started to eat away at me. I got depressed when I thought about Britt with another man. My self-esteem was falling. I felt like a failure, and it started to show. In the little things, I experienced moments of loneliness, betrayal, and confusion. I had to remind myself every morning and every evening that I was doing this for my children. I knew I started drinking more. I used to drink about 2 beers a week, and lately that's increased to 6 or 8. A lot, I know. My mental health was suffering. I felt depressed and sad, unable to get out of this state. I felt anxious all the time. I went to the doctor for a checkup, and he recommended that I exercise more. He was right. I was becoming a sloth. This needed to be fixed. So I started running again. I started going out early in the morning, around 5:30. At first it was 2 miles, and after 3 months I increased it to 5 miles. I started to feel much better. My attitude towards myself has improved, and my anxiety levels have dropped significantly. My self-confidence slowly grew. I joined a running club. We met one evening a week and on Sunday mornings. The idea was that we would all take turns leading the run and showing new strategies for improving performance. It made me think about running and how to improve. It was very funny. This meant that Britt had to do a little more parenting during these times if they had events planned, but that was the price she had to pay. She just didn't realize why at the time. I continued to find time to confront Britt about her affair. I think the day will come when I will have to do this. I won't have a choice. This must be my secret for now. This will be a very difficult task. Pretending to be normal takes a lot of effort. I'm not sure how long I can do this unless I get proof that something has changed. If Britt leaves her lover, then maybe things will really get back to normal. If she gets more involved, I'll have no choice. I will have to act. Let's see. Britt. Dean told me he wanted to spend the night with me. I replied that this would not happen. I reminded him that this was just fun, nothing more. But I know that he is beginning to insist more, becoming a little more demanding. He wants to go to dinner together, but that won't happen either. We are fine. I'm not going to destroy my family by going out in public with another man and risking being found out. It would be a disaster. Dean swears I'm the only woman he's sleeping with right now, so he's safe. Dean wants more time with me because he says Cam is getting more time with me, so he wants more to even the score. He wants to spend more time staying in bed after sex. He wants more than just sex, he wants intimacy. I never drink alcohol with him and always shower. So far I've been very successful in keeping my little secret from Cam. I intend to keep it that way. 2015 year. Calm. Last year was a big challenge for me. It's not easy to accept that your wife doesn't think you're good enough. When you think about it, it can slowly destroy your soul. I had to work to keep Brit's affair from destroying me. I had to admit that I was not the prince she wanted. But damn it, I wasn't going to give up without a fight. Brit was still doing everything a wife and mother of 3 growing children should do and working a demanding job. She was good, I admit that. We still had a sex life, albeit much reduced. There were too many things getting in the way, but it was my top priority to work on it. I needed to find out if she still wanted me or if sex with me was just an obligation for her. Before, when I looked at her, I saw the woman I fell in love with, married, and had 3 children with. This other woman, the traitor she was. An imposter, not the real Brit. I turned to a family counselor. I wanted to know if there were strategies I could use with children to reduce the impact of their mother's affair. So far, it hasn't really affected them. They didn't know anything had changed. They just saw her as the same mom she always was. And don't get me wrong, she was a good mother. She was not Cruella de Vil. She was never angry or annoyed with the children or even with me. I give Brit credit, she tried really hard to keep it looking the same as always. She never missed the children's activities or events. She was always a fully supportive mother, involved in school activities, and did her share of work. I also asked a marriage counselor to help me explore ways to increase the level of intimacy between Brit and I. This goal was a little more difficult, and the consultant gave me several books. What has changed over the past year are the less obvious things. It was a subtle change. It was an attitude and an approach, not an action, and I wanted to prepare for the time when her affair really breaks down and affects the children. For me, the past year has been marked by a number of changes. I became more physically fit than ever. My stamina and resilience have increased significantly. I went back to the doctor for another checkup, and he said whatever I was doing, keep it up. I smiled and thought that Brit was the reason for this turn in my life. I had something to prove. Side note, I was tested for diseases every 3 months at a private clinic, separate from my regular doctor. Fortunately, every test came back negative. I have taken up several other activities to improve my mental health. I became interested in rock climbing. I took a few courses to learn some basic technical skills and work on my upper body. This didn't come easy for me as I have a slight fear of heights. To overcome this fear, I took up parachuting. Stepping out of a plane with a parachute on your back and a reserve parachute on your front makes your heart race. I spent 3 weekends at the local parachute club. I did 6 jumps and got to the point where I was looking forward to the excitement of the jump. It was fun. Funnily enough, we don't have any real mountains nearby, but there are some areas where you can learn the basics. I did this and decided that climbing was not for me and moved on. The other thing I did was buy a motorhome and a truck to pull it with. I purchased the trailer from Grand Design. It is about 30 feet long and has a comfortable queen-size bed in the front and 4 bunk beds in the rear. The best thing about it is the bathroom and kitchen, as well as the dining area and sofa. All the comforts of home are carried behind the truck. The truck is a large Dodge Ram with a diesel engine. When I hook up the trailer to the truck, it pulls like it's not even there. This truck is a monster and a lot of fun to drive. Brit was against buying a trailer and truck, but the kids were thrilled when I took them to an RV show. I hook up the trailer and we head out for a weekend of fun at national and state parks. I hate being at private campgrounds where the campers are packed like cattle. Give me open spaces where I can breathe fresh air and my kids can run around and get dirty. Britt came with us a few times, but now she rarely joins. She has a job and clients to keep an eye on. At least that's what she says. At home, I quietly began to change the way I interacted with Britt. The closeness between us diminished after having children. The reality of busy lives and careers meant that we were often too weak to be intimate with each other. At least that's what I thought. Sex has become a sacrifice. I changed it up a bit, trying to increase the level of intimacy in our relationship. After all, I had competition in this race. If I lose the race, the consequences will be great. If I win the race, I'll have more options. My tactics for achieving my goal were the salami method. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, if you don't know, let me explain quickly. The salami method is about completing a large task one small piece at a time. If you go to the supermarket and buy a huge sausage and say you're going to eat it all by yourself, people will think you're crazy. But if you ask the butcher to cut it, he will run it through a cutter and turn your huge sausage into many very thin slices that are easy to eat one at a time. You don't eat all the sausage at once, you enjoy it for a long time and eventually it disappears. It may take months or more, but it will disappear, and if you handle it right, it won't go bad. An analysis of my salami method will suffice. What I did was to treat my wife differently than before. I paid more attention to her. I listened carefully to what she said and memorized it. I tried not to let her get lost in the daily hustle and bustle. Sometimes I would involve the kids in work to reduce the number of things Britt and I had to do. Children now have responsibilities. Laundry and trash are a start. It's not unusual to ask your kids to clean up after themselves, so I did, and eventually Britt started doing it too. Once a week at work, I took a few minutes to review my plan. I took notes and kept a calendar. I planned things so that they would not get lost in the bustle of life. One Wednesday, I proposed a date idea for us. We haven't gone out to dinner or a movie in months. Britt's response was a little muted, but she went along with the plan, and when Saturday arrived, we went to a new place for dinner and then watched a movie she had chosen. It was a pleasant evening, and when we got home, I poured us some wine and made sure to look Britt straight in the eye as we talked. We were easy with each other, easier than it has been in recent months. I circled the date on the calendar every time Britt and I had sex. I was pleased to see that lately there were many more red circles appearing on the calendar pages than before. Now I was winning. Is Britt still seeing her lover? I knew I was happier. However, I continued to keep the children as a priority. I never lost sight of this. Britt was still a good mother. She worked hard, but never ignored her children. We had dinner together several times a week and always on Sundays. This was our time together. We discussed the coming week and planned who would do what. It was all so homey and normal and, well, to me, it was all about being a family. I've been working out a lot at the gym, and my gym has great spin classes. I started going to classes about 3 months ago. The girl who teaches the classes is a little charmer named Kim. Kim is about 22 or 23 years old, and in addition to being very beautiful, she teaches excellent cycling classes. The first time I went, I thought it would be easy. 15 minutes later, I was already out of breath and thought that this was really much more difficult than it seemed. There were about 10 to 12 people in the class, and they all actively participated, shouting and cheering when they reached difficult parts. After 45 minutes of class, I was exhausted and excited at the same time. I thanked Kim for teaching me a lot about cycling that I didn't know. I continued to take spinning classes twice a week for the next 3 months, and during this time my ability and endurance improved significantly. I noticed that there was always a core group of people, mostly middle-aged women and a few men. One day after class, Kim came up to me and asked to talk. I freshened up and we went for coffee at Starbucks nearby. She was going to be away for a while, and there was no other spin instructor at the gym to take her place, and she wanted to see if I could fill in for her. If no replacement is found, classes will be canceled, and it may take several months before a new instructor is found. I thought about it for a few minutes and then agreed to try it. I told her that I would try, but there might be times when I would be busy and not be able to be there. So I taught cycling classes twice a week. The first couple of times were a definite learning experience, but everyone there knew I was just a replacement for Kim, and everyone had a sense of humor. About 3 weeks into my short class, one of the guys in the class approached me after class. "I don't know what you do, but some women just love what you do." "Eh? What do you mean? Have you noticed that the class is always full now? There are many more women here now than before. There's even a waiting list to sign up for your classes." "Are you kidding?" "No, watch some women next time. They're staring at you." He had to go, but I was shocked by his observation. I was no different from many of the men here at the gym. I'm about 6 feet tall and weigh 165 pounds. I know I'm in shape, but I'm not some muscular guy who likes to pose while lifting weights. There are a lot of them in the gym. In the next class, I deliberately looked at some of the women's faces as we went through the routine. He was right. Some looked at me. It was a little unsettling. Was this true for Kim? Did she feel good being the object of men's desire? This was new to me, but it was nice. In the next class, I observed some women as they looked at me. I noticed that one woman whom I knew to be married was now without her wedding ring, which she usually wore. What the hell? It all became weirder with every week. I tried to forget about it, but it was difficult to do so as 2 or 3 women wanted to talk to me before and after the spin class. I couldn't understand this sudden popularity. I also took up other hobbies. I started cycling again. I got rid of an old bike I had for years and bought a new one. This is a road bike. I spent too much money on it, a little over $1,500, but it's a great bike. I bought the proper riding clothes and made sure I had lights on the front and back of the bike. The headlights seemed like targets for idiots on the roads who don't know how to share the road with a bicycle. If I'm ever elected, I'll change the law to add more bike lanes and increase penalties for drivers who are just assholes. Brit. Cam does a lot more stuff now than he used to. He works out every day and is fitter than ever. His stamina in the bedroom has improved, or at least I have benefited from his new energy. He's better than Dean now. Cam does a lot of things without discussing them with me in advance. He went to an RV show and bought this ridiculous trailer. Then he bought a huge truck to pull it. The kids love it and love taking it to campgrounds and parks. I went a few times, but work always gets in the way, and I'm not as in love with nature as they are. Besides, I need to make up for the time at work that I spend with Dean during the week. This means I have to spend an hour or more almost every night on my laptop and more on the weekends to keep up. I can't let Rachel, my boss, know what I'm doing, so I work on my own time. And then everything changed. Calm. First, I have to tell you about my friend Tommy. His full name is Thomas Fairfield March, and he's my best friend. We grew up together. We learned together. We were brothers, although we had different mothers and fathers. Tommy was best man at my wedding, and I was best man at his. When we were teenagers, we got into trouble together and had each other's back. When I was studying accountancy at university, Tommy was studying to become an architect. I stayed in Albany after school and went to work for a big firm. Tommy went to work here, but after a couple of years, he was offered a job with an international company, but it was in Melbourne. Yes, in Australia, on the other side of the planet. Tommy called me at any time of the day. He never remembered the 15-hour time difference between the two places, and the international date line meant he was a day ahead. When it's daytime here, it's nighttime in Melbourne, and vice versa. Tommy went to Melbourne and immediately began design work, but quickly realized that the future there was in construction. The country prospered economically and expanded rapidly. He worked to create his own company that would handle everything from concept to design, construction, and even renovation. I told you that Tommy was married. He and his wife separated and then divorced here in the US before he packed up and left. It seemed like they had different life plans, they didn't have children, and so it was inevitable that they would go down different paths. Sherry also dated a dentist with whom she had an affair. In Melbourne, Tommy carefully put together a business plan and has already found many resources that will be needed to launch his business. He received funding from several sources, from family here in New York and from a venture capital group he met in Australia through a company he worked for. They were going to be minority partners. But it was still missing several critical components. He needed more skilled workers and a business manager. I think this is where I entered the discussion. Tommy called me every few days and asked me a long list of questions. He emailed me lists and more lists and asked me to tell him what to do. I did this for a while and then called him on FaceTime. We exchanged our usual pleasantries. Hey, asshole, I can't handle all these lists. Well, I need answers before I talk to a lawyer and start the process of starting this business. What, you haven't talked to a lawyer yet? Here they are called solicitors. Whatever, but for the love of all that is holy, talk to one of them. There are a ton of rules and regulations that need to be followed, even in Australia, to run a business. The most important thing is to start a business in a way that minimizes taxes. Have you heard about taxes? Is it true? I saw him laughing on my computer screen. So get ready and come here as soon as possible. I was shocked. What? Do you want me to come there? Now you asshole. No, I want you to come here and become the business manager and help me launch this business and make it a huge success. I want us to become rich and powerful. I want us to make a lot of money. So come here. I leaned back and took a deep breath. Damn, I didn't expect this. Tommy laughed again. Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right? But I need you here. You are the person I trust the most after my father and mother. So I want you to be a part of this. I want you to become a partner in this business. No, I need you. Please come to Melbourne. We talked for another 2 hours, and then I sat at my desk with a notepad and started planning. I drank 3 bottles of water, ate a sandwich, and ignored the many people peeking through my door wondering what I was doing. These were definitely not billable hours for the company. No, I ignored everything that was happening around me, taking notes and checking things online. At the end of the day, as I was getting ready to go home, I texted Tommy, I have a rough plan. I'll let you know when I'm on my way. That evening at home, I said nothing and did nothing to let anyone know that I was taking a vacation and going to Melbourne for a month. Britt was herself, and we talked about everything we usually talk about at and after dinner. I helped with homework and put the kids to bed. I prepared lunches for the next day for them and for myself. I was cleaning the house, started the laundry, and turned on the dishwasher. Everything was very normal. The next day at work, I called my lawyer and made an appointment to discuss my plan and what I needed to do. I spoke with my boss and agreed on 60 days of unpaid leave. I wasn't sure I'd need all this time, but we agreed. His look read, "You're clearly not telling me a lot." But he didn't really have a choice. Either give me a vacation or lose me now forever. Next, I took out my passport and made sure it was valid for 6 months beyond the date I expected to return to Albany. The next day, I contacted Katherine Johnson and asked her to come see me. We talked, and I asked her to keep an eye on Britt's activities while I was gone. She should have sent me weekly reports via email. I wanted to make sure that my absence wouldn't be a license for Britt to invite her lover into our home. If this happens, my plan is immediate divorce. Catherine was also supposed to send weekly reports to Leanne, and if anything happened, the divorce papers would be delivered. 3 days later, I returned home from work and started cooking dinner. I was cooking spaghetti with meat sauce when Britt walked through the door. She came in with a briefcase and phone in hand and quickly greeted me. The children sat at the dining table, doing homework and preparing for their evening classes. Laura was going to soccer practice, and Diane was going to Scouts. Davy was free, so he was my helper in carrying our folding chairs and water bottles to the playground. When we all got home, I noticed Britt was still sitting at her laptop, sorting out documents and emails. I gave the kids a snack before bed and sent them to the shower, then put on their pajamas, brushed their teeth, and then they could read before turning out the lights. I went to the refrigerator, found a bottle of wine, and poured 2 glasses. I entered the office and placed one of the glasses in front of her. I sat down on the sofa. "Britt, we need to talk." She took a small sip of wine and looked at me. My face gave me away, I know. I had a serious expression on my face. "Who is Dean Billings?" Britt gasped and dropped her wine glass to the floor. A little wine got on her clothes, but she didn't move. "How long have you been in a relationship with him?" Silence again. Her mouth was open, but there were no words. I continued. "I think I have a good idea, more than 2 years." I let her absorb this and then asked, "Are you leaving us?" "Still nothing." I continued. "It's the 21st century, and I don't own you. I can't order you anything, so I guess you can do whatever you want. If you don't want to be with me, all you have to do is tell me. I can take the hint." I took a sip. "I turned a blind eye to this for too long in hopes that you would end things with him, but I know that during my absence you spent even more time with him. Did you bring him here, to this house?" She quietly answered, "No." "Thank you for not bringing him to my children." We sat in silence for what seemed like a long time, but in reality it was only half a minute. I handed her the large envelope I had. "Here are the documents I need to give you. They explain everything clearly. Now you can spend as much time with him as you want. It doesn't matter now." Finally, she was able to speak again. "Cam, I don't want a divorce. I want my family. I love you all very much. I don't want to lose you." I answered sharply, "You have a strange way of showing your love for us." I waited, but she didn't say anything. "I've waited almost 2 damn years for you to either end things with him or tell me the truth that you want him. So what is it? I'm not sure you even know." I moved the envelope closer to her and told her that she needed to see a lawyer tomorrow. I stood up, finished off the rest of the wine in my glass, and left the room. When I left, I added, "You can sleep in the guest room until we get some things sorted out." "Britt, here you go. I'm in complete shit. In a figurative sense, not literally. I was so sure that I had hidden Dean from Cam so well that my two worlds would never intersect. Now they collided. What the hell should I do now? Why in the name of all that is holy did I even start dating Dean? It was a big mistake. How to fix this? I heard Cam taking my things, into the guest bedroom. He made a few trips, and I realized that my world had collapsed, and I was the one who pulled the trigger. I slowly opened the envelope. Claim for divorce. This is what was written at the top of the document. There was a business card attached to the top right corner. Apparently his lawyer. Cam wasn't going to put up with my bullshit. I was overcome with a feeling of helplessness. I was caught. I was so stupid, I thought. Why the hell did I do this? I know why. He was charming and attentive, and I was lonely, needing the attention of someone other than small children. Cam worked 60-hour weeks, and my schedule was all over the place. We never had time for each other, and when we did, the intimacy was too brief, and then it was back to business, to the reality of 3 kids, 2 jobs, and bills to pay. Dean was attractive, had a killer smile, and he connected with me in a completely different way than my family did. At first, I planned to stop after a couple of months. I knew this was very wrong. He had a girlfriend with whom he was semi-serious. They suddenly stopped dating. He didn't talk much about the breakup, but he wanted to spend more time with me. I loved the attention and didn't do anything to stop it, as it should have been. Oh shit, I just realized. It must have been his girlfriend who went to Cam and told him everything. Oh my God, Cam must have been in shock. Now all the changes he made in his life make sense. He needed to save himself. Everything he had done in the last year had led up to this evening. I didn't do anything to prevent it. In fact, I made everything worse. As I looked through the documents he handed me, the only thing that caught my eye was that Cam wanted custody of the children. The lawsuit said he had been the primary caregiver for the past 4 years, performing most of the parental responsibilities. He was willing to give me liberal visitation if I wanted it. I was going to lose my children. I can't let this happen. I was going to lose my husband. I do not want it. My stomach decided I needed to move fast. I ran to the toilet by the front door and threw up. As I leaned over the toilet, I realized that, along with the contents of my stomach, my life was going down the toilet. Come. I called my mother and father to tell them I was going to divorce Britt. They were shocked. Of course, they wanted to know why. When I told them that she had been cheating on me with another man for some time, they didn't want to believe it. Both offered any help they could. I didn't reveal my final plan to them. Leanne made sure Britt's lawyer was involved in the negotiations and that the terms I was proposing were discussed. Naturally, the key issue was children. In New York, the law does not address adultery as a reason for divorce. You can get a divorce just because you want. No other reasons are required. In practice, everything is decided by behind-the-scenes negotiations and the division of property and life. I didn't care about our things, including the house. I was more than willing to split everything in half. She takes half, I take half. But when it came to children, I was not going to give in here. The children stayed with me, and that was the final decision. Laura is almost 12 years old, Diana is 10, and Davy is 7, but he acts like a 17-year-old. It's difficult with him. I sat down with the kids and told them a simplified version of the truth. I wanted to preserve Britt's dignity in this whole situation. Also, I wanted them to continue to respect their mother. She deserved it. The kids really understood. Laura was very aware of divorce among her friends and classmates. She knew what that meant. She told me, in front of her sister and brother, that she wanted to live with me. Diana and Davy looked at Laura and then at me and said that they also wanted to live with me. I was proud of my children, and I have never been prouder than in this moment of their support. The next few weeks were tense, to say the least. Britt and I lived in separate bedrooms, and although we were polite to each other, that was the limit of our communication. Several times Britt came to the bedroom door and asked if she could come in. I allowed it. One day she started to undress, and I stopped her. "Were you with your lover?" When she didn't answer, I told her to leave. About a week later, I told Britt that I had talked to the kids and that we needed to talk as a family. She didn't want to, but I insisted because I wanted her to face the truth about the mess she had created. If it gets dirty, the dirt will be on it. The next evening, I prepared dinner, and we all sat down at the table. "Okay, I have a few things everyone needs to hear." They all stopped eating and looked at me. "I think it's time for Mom to find a new place to live. Our divorce date is coming up very soon, and I think that's the next thing to do until then." Britt looked at the table, and the children looked at her. Laura spoke first. "Mom, why did you stop loving us?" Those words were like a knife to Britt's heart. "Darling, I never stopped loving you. I love you all very much." "But you don't love Daddy?" "Yes, I love him. My daughter knew how to get to the bottom of it, as only an innocent child can." "But then why are you with another man?" Britt couldn't speak. I... The children looked at me. "Kids, I think we should finish eating and then get ready for baseball practice at Davies." Britt almost ran out of the room. Her decisions began to come back to her. Her actions had consequences. Her own children taught her a hard lesson about consequences. I still had a few things left to complete by the end of this marriage. So, the last days of my marriage have arrived. All details have been worked out. I plan to sell the house within a few months of the end of the marriage and move to Melbourne with the children. Britt objected at first, but after she realized that the children wanted to be with me, she withdrew her objections. Leanne received a notarized letter from Britt's lawyer confirming her consent to the move. Immigration officials wanted this as proof that I was not kidnapping my children and running away. I still worked at the firm during the day and for Tommy at night and on weekends when I had free time. Who needs sleep? It is highly overrated. I gradually sold all the furniture in the house that neither Britt nor I wanted. I gave the kids 2 large plastic boxes each. One was for things they wanted to take to Melbourne other than their luggage, and the second was for memorabilia they wanted to keep with their grandparents. They would eventually need these things, and my parents quickly agreed to keep them. Britt moved from a house to an apartment. The children helped her load her things into the rented van. I thought her lover would help her, but he was nowhere to be seen. I offered her any furniture from the house that she wanted. Pots, pans, beds, a sofa, all this was available to her. I didn't need any of this. Apart from the 2 crates for the kids, everything else will end up being sold or given away. I noticed that she took our wedding photo album. I wasn't sure what to do with it, so her solution solved this problem. I no longer wore my wedding ring. In fact, I gave it back to Britt when she moved out of our former home. Now that the divorce was almost finalized, there was no need for it. Several women in the firm noticed this, and later I noticed that several ladies were clearly watching me. My divorce was no secret. I didn't ask Britt to give me back the engagement and wedding rings I gave her. If she wanted them back, I probably would have taken them, but what could I do with them? In fact, Leanne mentioned that the court views engagement and wedding rings as gifts, and so it is up to the recipient what to do with them. So it was up to Britt. Weeks passed and preparations continued for our move to Melbourne. I tried to keep the children's lives as normal as possible. Britt took the kids with her a few times, but never overnight. She rented a 1-room apartment because soon the children would no longer be around to stay with her. It was all very strange to me, and even Laura told me that her mother seemed so different. It was incredibly surreal to get rid of all our family belongings. These were both large items and countless little things that we accumulated during our time together. I offered everything Britt might want. I asked family and friends if there was anything they wanted and suggested I just give it to them. I then held a house sale and invited people to come and buy anything they might need. I tried to get a reasonable price for things we paid good money for, but most people were looking for bargains. Many people knew that this was a sale, so they tried to reduce the price of the remaining large items. I kept the children's beds until the last minute because they needed somewhere to sleep. Finally, when everything of value was sold, I invited a charity to take what they wanted. The rest went into the trash container. This is the moment when you realize that most of your life is over when you throw your things in the dumpster. It was a hard day. The children even helped me with this. They were sad to see some things go. Some of our relatives offered to keep some things, but in reality, we needed to cut the thread and move on. I didn't ask Britt about her life after she moved. She kept most of her life private and away from me for over 2 years, so I decided that now I don't care what she does. If she wanted to share something with me, she could do it. For all the time that has passed since her affair with Dean was revealed to Billings, Britt never told me she was sorry. I never wanted to talk about our marriage and what was missing in it for her to find another man. My anger at her had subsided over time, and I had given up the faint hope that she might be willing to find a way to keep her family together. If she didn't want her family enough to make at least a little effort, then there was no point in my efforts. Our marriage was over. I never told her, but I did a DNA test on the children. I was almost sure that they were mine, but when you find out that your wife has been lying to you for a long time, you begin to doubt other things. I was very happy to see the results. The day the divorce was finalized, Leanne called and said she had a court order in her office and I could pick it up, or she would courier it. I was just passing by her building, so I stopped by and picked it up. She congratulated me, and we had drinks in her office to celebrate. I thanked her for working for me and wrote her a final check for her services. It wasn't cheap, but it was good. I told her I was amazed that she was able to convince Britt to agree to have the kids move to Australia with me. She admitted that it took some pressure and a warning that the whole situation could become very awkward for Britt if the details became known to her family, friends, and employers. To save face, it would be better to agree to move the children. Nothing stopped Britt from visiting her children in Australia. That was done. The flight to Melbourne was an adventure for the children. They were real fighters, and although the ride was painfully long, they never complained. Davy spent a lot of time staring out the window, watching the clouds, the land, and the ocean. Tommy met us at the airport in a large van to take us and our pile of luggage to our temporary home. Tommy hired a real estate agent to find a suitable rental house near a good school. It was just minutes from his home and close to the services, grocery store, doctors, and dentists we needed. There was a minimum of furniture in the house, but for the first time this was enough. I told the kids that they would have a few days off before school started so we could relax and look around the area and get to know our new place. Being a single father is a challenge. It's one thing to do this in Albany, where my family is nearby, but it's a completely different thing in another country. I had no support system other than Tommy in case of an emergency. This bothered me. Maybe too much. I was very careful in everything I did. I realized I was being a little paranoid. Laura took on more and more responsibility, looking after her sister and younger brother. She was 12, but she was like a 32-year-old, and she was my little helper. She even tried to cook food and, of course, made sure that her brother and sister cleaned the house. She grew up quickly. The children went to a new school, and after my meeting with their teachers, I became more confident that we could cope in a new country. The children were surprised how everything here is different, and at the same time similar. Only a few days passed before Davy began actively using new words. He said damn and damn with and without reason, and it was funny to hear him try out his Australian accent. "Dad, let's have a barbecue this weekend." I almost died laughing. The work was gaining momentum at the same time. The construction business was booming, and we had more work than we could handle. This meant we needed to expand. We had clients that we couldn't afford to disappoint because of the size of the projects they wanted us to do, so unless we wanted them to go elsewhere, we needed to hire additional workers, buy 2 more trucks and trailers, and buy more equipment. One of the contracts was for the construction of 30 back porches on houses in a new community. This was an elite community, and the verandas were large and multi-level. Additionally, they had to be made from composite boards that were part plastic and would never fade or rot. This material is not cheap, so workers had to be very precise in measuring and cutting. Waste was reducing our profits. We brought in 2 of our most experienced decking crews and supplemented them with less experienced workers. We hired a full-time tiler for interior work and several other specialists. We bought a loader and tractor with a bucket on one end and a digger on the other, as well as a trailer to transport it to construction sites. We have found that it is cheaper to make our own door and window moldings and cornice moldings for ceilings. These materials were in short supply because one of the factories that produced them burned down. I found the equipment needed to make them in New Zealand and shipped it here. It took a few days to install and test it, but one of our carpenters quickly got the hang of it, and they started making all the moldings we needed for much less than the cost of buying it. This meant we could complete the work faster and cheaper. One of the byproducts of the molding shop was huge bags of sawdust, so we bought a machine that presses sawdust into rectangular blocks. The sawdust is mixed with a small amount of paraffin wax and pressed into a mold. The resulting product can be burned in a stove or fireplace instead of firewood. This allows us to use sawdust that would otherwise end up in a landfill and brings us additional income. We contracted to sell these blocks to home improvement stores in the region, and they quickly became popular. We later learned that if we used a more powerful hydraulic press, we could eliminate the need for paraffin wax and produce better blocks that burned for hours. We made even more money from this. It's been almost a year since we arrived in Australia. The company was thriving, and we were making good money. We had over 30 employees. Tommy and I decided that we could start buying out his parents' share of the company and then work on buying out the investors' share. His parents wanted to travel more and buy a holiday home in Italy, so it worked out well for all of us. I took some of the money I had left after the divorce and used it to buy out part of his parents' share. Now I have 20% of the company. Tommy had 55%, leaving our silent investors with 25%. Tommy was still making the final decisions for the company, but he and I were on the same page. We decided to reward the company's employees as our profits grow. Profit-sharing plans were introduced for all employees. This meant that at the end of the year, the checks that were written were a nice bonus for everyone. The profit in the first year was small, but it was a great start. We just had to keep it up. We had a Christmas party at the warehouse and handed out checks and had a nice catered dinner. My children were there to enjoy the holiday. Summer holidays began at the end of the year. In Australia, the opposite is true compared to the US. Here, Christmas falls during the summer holidays, and this year the school holidays run from 21 December to 27 January. A long break compared to what we are used to. But I had a few adventures planned for us. Backpacking trips, a few days trip to the beach, and learning to sail, and I wanted to try a short caravan holiday. It's like a home on wheels for Americans. All was good. But our plans have changed. On December 22 at about 19, right after dinner, the doorbell rang. Laura shouted, "I'll open it." Then I heard, "What are you doing here?" I was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher, but what she said and the way she said it immediately caught my attention. It was clear that she was very surprised. I dried my hands with a towel and walked to the front door. What I saw, or rather who I saw, amazed me. "Hey, Cam, Laura, can I come in?" Standing in front of me was my ex-wife and the mother of my children. To say I was surprised was an understatement, to say the least. My shock must have shown on my face because Laura looked at me and said, "I guess it's your business," and walked away. I saw Laura, Diana, and Davy come into the living room and look at their mother. They didn't move towards her. They were just as shocked as I was. When I came to my senses, I motioned for Britt to come in. She had a small suitcase on wheels, and she placed it at the entrance and removed the handle. She was dressed nicely in jeans and a button-down shirt. She looked tired, but I admit she looked good. We all just stood there. I didn't know where to start. "Well, Britt, I won't lie, I'm surprised to see you. It's been a year, and you've come a long way, so this must be important." Britt called the children every few weeks to talk to them. I emailed her the best time to call. Given the huge time difference, I indicated the time in her time zone. If she had just picked up the phone and called, there would have been no guarantee where the kids might be at school, sleeping, whatever. I wanted Britt to talk to the kids. She was still their mother, and I didn't want her to lose touch with them. She looked like a deer caught in car headlights, but she looked me in the eyes and said, "I want to go home." What the? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the children looking at each other at the same time. Their eyes were large, and their expressions were full of surprise. They tried to understand what would happen. I knew I had to give Britt a chance to explain what she wanted. "Well, how long have you been in Melbourne?" "I just flew in and came here straight from the airport." "Better come in, and we'll make you something to eat." I waved for the kids to come over, and they actually ran towards Britt and all hugged her at the same time. It made me happy that they still felt something for their mother, even if her feelings for them are in question. What caring mother does not see her little children for a whole year? It's not a question. The next few days were a challenge, but the children were happy to see their mother after a year of separation. Britt brought small Christmas gifts for each of them, and they spent the next few days getting to know each other again. I tried to stay away as much as possible and give Britt time with them. Laura, my always wise daughter, quietly asked me on the second day why her mother had come to Australia now. I thought for a few seconds before answering. I can only assume that Britt was lonely without her children and wanted to spend time with them. That second night, after the kids went to bed, I asked Britt to talk to me. I poured us a drink, and we sat in the family room. "So, are you enjoying being with the kids again? They're excited to see you." She took a sip. "Thank you for letting me stay. I meant it when I said I wanted to come home. You and the kids are my home, no matter where it is. I want you all in my life again, and I want to be in your life. My life wouldn't be the same without you." "What happened to your boyfriend? Are you still with him?" "I haven't seen him since we got divorced. I realized what a stupid woman I was. I let my needs ruin my life and deprive me of my family." "And what does it mean?" "It means I want another chance. I want to be your wife, and I want to be a mother to these 3 children again. I want it so bad. I will do whatever it takes for you to take me back." She took a long sip of her drink. I took a sip and tried to formulate an answer. It wasn't just, "Oh, okay, you're back." I had great misgivings and never again wanted to feel the betrayal I felt when I found out she was sleeping with another man. Before the divorce, I waited a long time for you to change your mind about sleeping with your boyfriend. I tried to be patient. I tried to look the other way. I thought that if I gave you space, you would understand that you were risking your family and future with us. I tried to improve myself and be a better husband. Tried to be a better sex partner for you. But none of that mattered to you when I was here in Melbourne last year, and you took the opportunity to spend even more time with him. That, to me, was the end of us. How do you propose to bring us back together?" Britt thought for a moment. "I tried to make a plan before I came here. I thought I'd throw myself at your feet and swear I'd be better and never do that again. But that's not a plan. I know it takes rebuilding trust. I know it won't happen overnight. I know it will be a lot of work. But I'm ready. The ones you'll have to work the hardest to rebuild trust with will be those 3 kids sleeping upstairs. They were very brave when we were getting divorced. They tried really hard to carry on without their mother. They were what got me through it all from the moment I found out about your romance. They were wonderful all this time moving to Australia and never complained to me about all this chaos in their lives." My eyes started to water when I talked about my children. Britt nodded her head. "Britt, last year was the worst year of my life. When Ken found out about my affair with Dean, he was so controlled with his emotions that I thought he didn't care. But he became cold. He pulled away from me. And can I blame him? He had time to plan everything, and he planned it well. I really didn't know what to do. Unbeknownst to me, I lost my entire family, and they moved away. Last year was hell. I miss my kids, and I miss life with Cam. I realized too late that he is a much better person than me. Yes, we planned these children together, and yes, I gave birth to them, and yes, I am their mother, or at least it was. And then I lost my whole family. I became stupid. I'm alone. I want to be part of my family. I want my family back so bad. I've spent the last year going to weekly sessions with a therapist to try to figure things out. What do I really want? This was her question to me. I tried for a long time to justify my affair with Dean, and then I realized that I really was stupid. A friend said this to me one evening when I was at a bar with colleagues. The conversation turned to me, and she asked how often I heard from Cam and the kids since they moved to Australia. I tried to dodge the question, but she returned to it. How often do I call my children? Am I planning to go to them? What are my plans for the holidays? Don't I miss them? What she was really trying to say was that I was a terrible mother and wife, that I ruined everything so badly that my ex-husband took the children and moved as far away from me as possible. The therapist basically said the same thing, only in more clinical and polite terms. She tried to get me to say what I wanted. How do I see the future of marriage and family if I have a lover on the side? How do I imagine combining these two lives? What is my plan for the future? Do I want other lovers if religion will leave? Do I want Cam to understand my needs and accept that I need a lover to satisfy me sexually? Do I think Cam will have any objections to what I want? What will be the end result for me, him, and the children? I didn't have any answers. I was so confused. The conflict came to a head the first Thanksgiving and Christmas I spent without my husband and children. The divorce was finalized, Cam and the kids moved to Australia, and I was left alone in a studio apartment. I tried to focus on work and still see Dean. Dean was trying to say, in a way, that he was tired of our weekly meetings and that the novelty and excitement had worn off. He started dating a new girl and decided we needed to call it a day. It's funny, a man leaves a woman. So, on Thanksgiving Day, I was alone. I did not have time to go to my parents, and my mother did not insist that I come to them, as she did when the children were with me. We talked, but the conversation mainly concerned the children. How are the kids doing? Do they like it in Australia? What are they doing? Do I know how Cam is doing? Something like that. She asked me what time I had, but didn't invite me to Thanksgiving dinner. I guess the implication was that I would come if I could or wanted to. I went. My brother and his wife were there with their 2 children. My brother was polite, but I saw that he was looking at me strangely. My sister-in-law, Kat, was more straightforward. When we were alone and drinking wine, she asked directly, "How did you lose your family so easily?" I coughed, but she continued, "So, did you even fight for them? Did you care enough about your marriage and children to do anything about it?" She was gaining momentum. I breathed out to say something, but she raised her hand to stop me. "Don't answer. I know what you were doing. I hope it was worth the price you paid." She got up and went into another room with her children. Later that day, after my brother and father had a few beers while watching football, he said to me, "Damn it, sister. I thought you were smarter. You lost your family to cheating." He turned and left. When it was time for Christmas, I was afraid to go home, so I spent it alone in my apartment. Christmas dinner consisted of a ham and cheese sandwich and a bottle of wine. People I worked with avoided me when planning holiday get-togethers. There was a lot of partying and drinking. I went to 2, but the conversation always came down to plans with my family. I usually left early. So here I am, a stupid woman who lost her family because of casual sex with a guy. I lost my husband's love, lost his respect, lost my children, lost my home. All this for casual sex with Dean Billings once or twice a week. He wasn't worth it. I continued to see a therapist, now twice a week. She helped me get my head out of my ass and figure out what I wanted. I realized that I wanted to give back what I had. I want my family. I want their love. I want to see them, touch them, hold them, do things with them, and, well, everything. I want this nightmare that has been my life to stop. I want to wake up and see my husband and children and live a normal life. God, I can't tell you how much I regret my affair. It seemed exciting at the time, I guess. It was a secret I kept from Cam, and it was something I thought was okay. It was just fun. It didn't take anything away from Cam. I was a good wife and mother. What I did with Dean didn't matter to my family. I've been keeping an eye on this. I didn't understand when Ken started doing many other things he hadn't done before or had put off. Personal items, entertainment items, fun items. Hell, he learned to skydive. I thought he was having a nervous breakdown. Now I understand that he was trying to forget about me and what I did. I didn't realize that he knew about my affair with Dean. Cam did things to save himself. He bought a huge trailer and a truck to tow it and took the kids camping. I hated this thing. Now I understand that I hated it because it was his decision to buy it. This meant Cam took control of our family. The kids loved it. They couldn't wait to go somewhere with him for the weekend to get dirty. They were having fun without me. I pretended that I had to work. And what did all this lead to? Lonely life without my family, alone and with great sadness. It is not surprising now that the children wanted to stay with their father and not with me. They even told me they were excited about moving to Australia. They didn't realize that they were telling me that I had become unimportant to them. Maybe they understood. They knew their father was the one to be with. He was someone you could rely on. He was the one who did things with them. He was a parent who was an adult. I wasn't there. When the kids helped me load things into the car when I moved, they asked why I left them behind. I didn't understand, but Laura was watching me carefully. She was trying to gauge how much I wanted her and her brother and sister. Do I want them enough to do something to keep them? She got her answer. They were Cam's children now, not mine. I wasn't worth fighting for. I didn't know how to fight for them. Last year was hell. I need to fix this. I had nothing to lose by getting on a plane to Melbourne. I had everything I could buy. I had to find out if my children wanted me in their lives. I knew Cam wouldn't want me. He was the one who initiated the divorce. But he was as polite as can be expected. He didn't tell our families what was really going on. He told my parents that we were growing up apart. This saved them from the truth about my stupidity. I'm sure they eventually understood. The move to Melbourne was risky. Maybe. What if Cam had a new woman? What if he absolutely refuses to let me see the kids? What if the kids don't want to see me? Then what to do? catch a plane back to Albany. I think that's all I could do. When Cam let me into the house, I was amazed. When my children hugged me, I couldn't stop crying. It was like being released from prison. I didn't want to let them go. Cam made me something to eat. I don't remember what it was. I ate it. I was in prostration. That night, I couldn't sleep. Cam told me I could stay with them. The children showed me a room where I could sleep. This was Davy's room. He was going to sleep on an air mattress in the room with his father. I tried to fall asleep, but the thoughts in my head were flying at breakneck speed, and the dream was forgotten. I looked at the ceiling. I couldn't believe my luck in such a short time. Davy went to the door and knocked. I opened the door, and he asked if he could sleep with me. Tears streamed down my face. He climbed onto his bed, and we hugged. I never wanted to let my son go. This was the start. Cam, what should I do? Part of me wants to kick her the hell out. It had been a year since she last saw the children. She barely rings. She managed to send a gift to each child on their birthday. Thanks, Amazon. They delivered for her. Now she's here. We'll talk tomorrow. I need to find out what she wants. I got up early and made myself a cup of espresso to get my brain going. Ever since I moved here, I can't stand that weak urine we call coffee in the US. I bought an espresso machine, and it has been my savior in the mornings. A strong cup of coffee with a little cream helps me organize my day before I send the kids to school and go to work. Luckily, we have school holidays for Christmas. I had planned some camping time for us and wanted to take the kids to the beach and try their hand at sailing. I heard Davy's room door open. A moment later, I heard the toilet flushing. Britt appeared around the corner. Would you like some coffee? Please. Without saying a word, I turned and made her a cup of espresso. Thanks, Cam. This coffee is great. I discovered this thing shortly after we moved here. I have another coffee maker, but this one is much better. I stood on the kitchen side of the island, and Britt sat on a stool on the other side. Britt looked around, probably noticing that the house was rather sparsely furnished. We had the necessary things, but no more. I rented a house and had neither the time, nor the inclination, nor the money to furnish it as if we were going to live here for a long time. Last night you said you wanted to go home. What do you mean by that? Britt took a long sip of her coffee and looked me straight in the eye as she began talking about her senior year. For the first time in a long time, I felt that she was sincere in her words and emotions. She talked about how much she missed the children and even me. I had questions. So, you and I are divorced. Do you have someone now? No, Cam, I don't have another man in my life. When you broke up with your boyfriend, what was his name? I broke up with him before our divorce. I was somewhat surprised by this answer. How long have you been here? As much as you allow me. How will this work? I want to be a mother to children again, and I would like to be your wife again. She paused and asked her question. Are you with someone right now? I raised both my hands up, palms up, and made a gesture around the house. Do you see anyone here other than us? Britt turned her head to look around the kitchen. No. I guess that answers your question. The last 2 years my life has been dedicated solely to taking care of my children and helping me get my business started. Other than that, no, I don't have a woman in my life. I just didn't have time for a woman right now. It's not that I don't want her. The time will soon come when this part of my life will become important again. But sitting here in front of me, there was a woman with whom I had a long history, and she was telling me that she wanted to be a part of our lives again. I exhaled, took a sip of coffee, and asked the question, so, do you want to move here? If you accept me. I thought for a moment about what I needed to do. I need to talk to the kids about this. This will have an impact on them. The impact can be very large. If they have a mother again, it can be very good for them. That is, children need a mother, especially girls. After all, there is all this about girls and how to deal with it. It was difficult even for boys, but girls were a whole new thing that I had to deal with. I did some research online to help me understand how to better support my daughters as they get older. I even thought about asking one of the women working at the construction company for help. She is a single mother and could probably give me some good advice on how best to support Laura and Diana as they grow older. Laura is almost 13, and I can see that she is becoming a young woman. Maybe Britt's presence would be good for the kids. I just wasn't sure I could handle her presence. If she is not willing to change to become a better person, I will not allow her into our lives. I won't be able to handle the pain again. I was just starting to recover from the last time, and now she's here. The day passed very quickly. The children got up, had breakfast, and helped with the usual household chores. They walked around their mother, as if not believing that she was here. She was here, but was it the real mom who walked through the door last night? I saw that Davy wasn't on the air mattress when I stood up. I looked around the house for him, and then realized that he might be in his room. I looked in very quietly, and of course, he was sleeping, cuddled up to his mother. He was the first to vote. I knew that Laura would have the greatest difficulty in getting her mother back. She is a very smart girl and has taken on a lot of responsibilities that a normal 12-year-old might not have. She was the one who encouraged her sister and brother and monitored their homework. She took the lead in cleaning the kitchen after meals and helped me with various little things in our lives. She was irreplaceable to me. But now her mother is suddenly here, and what that means is still far from clear. It remains to be seen whether Britt will stay for more than a few days or run back home. I had planned a day hike for us north of the city. And of course, when breakfast was finished, Laura reminded Diana and Davy that they needed to pack their backpacks. She also reminded them to brush their teeth. I could hardly contain my laughter. I watched Britt, and she wisely stayed away. I told Britt about our plans, and she asked if she could come with us. I looked at the kids and told her, yes, she could go. When we went outside to get into the truck, Laura went to the front passenger door as usual to get in. Britt was a little embarrassed on both sides. The passenger side was on the left side of the truck, and Laura was already in the front seat. I looked at Laura and asked, do you mind if your mother sits here today? Laura rolled her eyes and sighed heavily, as if to say, whatever you want, and walked out of the front of the truck and sat in the back seat. My truck is a 2010 Toyota Hilux model, which is called a crew cab in the U.S. It's very similar to the Toyota Tacoma sold in the U.S., except the steering wheel is on the right side of the truck, and the engine is diesel and comes with a manual transmission. We went to the Donna Buang Mountain Lookout Tower to take some photos and then hiked in the area. Melbourne is surrounded by many national parks and breathtaking views. We had already done some walks along the coast, and the tower was on the children's list of places they wanted to see. I packed lunches and water bottles for everyone and made an extra one for Britt. I carried it. The children had their own backpacks with the necessary things. I grabbed a first aid kit and a couple of foil emergency blankets. We always took a raincoat and a hat. This was mandatory every time. Britt was clearly nervous, as this was the first time in 18 months that she had done anything with children. One of the last times she did anything with us as a family was in that camper I bought. She hated the thing and only rode with us in it twice. By that time, our marriage was already on the decline. She made excuses not to do things with us. Today, there was no way to avoid outdoor activities. If she wanted to win over the children, she would have to go around and enjoy it. In addition, today there were easy walks of 10 kilometers. Davy took his mother's hand as we walked. Now that she was here, he wanted to make sure she didn't leave. Diana walked with her for most of the hike, and they talked about all the things 10-year-old girls talk about. Laura stayed close to me, and I could see that she wanted to talk to me. When we broke away from the others a little, she asked directly, "Dad, how long will she stay?" "I don't know. I think she wants to be part of the family again. I think she really misses you and Diana and Davy. I know Davy misses her a lot. And I think Diana does too. What about you?" Laura made a serious face. "I missed her, but I'm not sure I miss her now. She abandoned us. She abandoned us all. Me, Davy, Diana, even you. Why did she do that, Dad?" I took a deep breath. "I wish I knew, honey. I wish I knew. All I know is that she made bad decisions that affected the whole family, and for that she is truly sorry. She realized that she wanted to be with you. Does she want to be with you too? All this wisdom from a 12-year-old girl. I don't know about that. Do you want to be with her? Too many questions for now. Let's enjoy the hike while the weather is nice. I avoided answering this difficult question because I didn't know how to answer. We climbed to the top of the observation tower, took some photos, and ate some of our lunches. Then we went to the trail and to the waterfall. We sprayed everyone generously with mosquito spray, as Ross River and Barma forest viruses are the two most common mosquito-borne viruses in Victoria. Britt grimaced as she was sprayed, and the kids laughed at her sounds. We all smelled like repellent all day until we got home and showered. It was a nice walk, and we all got to know each other again. That evening, Davy wanted his mother to read to him at night. She read to him, and when he fell asleep, she came out and sat on the kitchen island to talk to me. This was a continuation of the conversation started in the morning. I heard Laura walk down the hall to the bathroom, and then back into the bedroom she shared with her little sister. I brought Britt and myself a bottle of beer each, since there was no wine in the house. I don't drink this, so I never buy it. I handed her the beer. It was in a glass bottle. No glasses needed. I took a sip. Did you enjoy the day with the kids? I know Davy did, and Diana probably did too. Laura will be the hardest. She will be the hardest to convince that you are serious about being her mother again. Britt took a sip. Before she could say anything, I continued. She felt very rejected by you. In case you didn't notice, so did I. Britt looked at the tabletop. How can I tell them that I want to be their mother again? I think you can't just say it and expect them to understand. You have to show it. You have to be here for them and do what mothers do. You can't just play the role of a mother. You have to live the role. I try to live the role of a father. I don't always do a good job, but the children are wonderful and help me every day. I couldn't do it without them. Britt looked at me. I had a serious face. She started. I spent a lot of time trying to understand why you weren't good enough for me. You had to be inadequate in some way for me to want to spend time with another man. But it took a long time to understand that it was I who wasn't good enough for you. She took a long sip. The more you did as a father, the less I did as a mother. It's hard to explain, but I thought your success was my failure. Part of my brain thought I was better off away from my family. So I went to Dean. He was charming and completely devoid of principles and values. He cheated on a sweet girl for the sake of me, a married woman. I told myself that it was just for fun and had no effect on you and the children. She took another sip. I didn't know how you found out I was cheating on you until the divorce, and then it came to me. His girlfriend must have told you. The cat is out of the bag. We both took a sip. I told her the short version of what I did, how I decided to wait and see if it would end. When it seemed like not, I decided to do things for myself to cope with the stress, and yes, humiliation of my wife wanting another man and not me. I must have been a failed husband, so I decided that if I couldn't save the marriage, I would save myself and the children. I went to the refrigerator and grabbed 2 more beers. If you want to return to your family, there are conditions. You can't just walk in and say you're back. Britt nodded her head. What do you want me to agree to? The first condition is loyalty to me and the children. Your infidelity has affected us all. If you cannot accept this condition, then we have nothing further to talk about. I've been thinking about this and more since you all left. I want to be your wife and their mother again. She didn't say she was willing to do anything to achieve this goal. These are empty promises. No one will ever do everything. There are many things we are not ready to do, so it is pointless. However, she said she wanted to be a wife and mother again. It was reassuring, if nothing else. I wanted the children to have a mother, their mother. I wanted this stability for them. For the last year, I have been planning for their mother to no longer do mothering. She made her decisions and had to live with the consequences. End of story for her. My job was to continue to live and build a life for the 4 of us. That's why I accepted Tommy's offer and moved with them halfway around the planet. Another thing that affected Britt was the physical distance from her children. Being so far away meant that her weekends and holidays were spent alone. I know that if I had to give up my children, it would kill me. My life would have no meaning. My children are the tangible result of my life. If I do nothing else while I'm alive, I'll give birth to 3 people and raise them to adulthood. Handling it well is the most important thing to me. If I fail at this, nothing else matters. The fact that I can help build something else is just an addition. Back to my dilemma. What should I do when Britt sits in front of me and tells me that she truly wants to be my wife and the mother of our children again? What did you do with work? Took an indefinite break. Told Rachel I might be back. It all depends on what you and the kids decide. And the apartment you lived in? I put everything in storage. If you let me stay, I'll ask my father to sell everything. If you send me back, I'll find a new place to live. That tiny apartment was depressing. It was cold and very. Well, I couldn't stay there, regardless of everything. It was a very small suitcase you came with. I have 3 other large ones that have been shipped. The airline is holding them for me. If I can stay, I'll call and they'll be delivered. If not, I'll call and they'll be sent back to Albany. The second condition is to talk to me. If you are unhappy with life with me, you should talk about it. Perhaps you and I are not meant for each other. Perhaps we should be with someone else, and our marriage is a big mistake. I've thought about this a lot, but one of the things I don't think about is that these 3 children are a mistake. They are mine, they are real, for the rest of my life. I needed to take a breath. I started to worry. I took a sip to calm down. The third condition is family therapy. We need a psychologist or therapist to help sort things out. My feelings are still very fresh. I was just starting to feel good, and now your arrival has brought it all up again, and I have to deal with it all over again. It's just me. The children must be very confused now. Your appearance after a year, they probably want to know how long you will stay. You must talk to them all together and separately. When is the right time to do this? Tomorrow. Don't delay, not for a minute. But don't you dare raise their hopes and then run away to the States again. If you do that, I'll do something. I don't know what, but I'll be very angry. We talked for a long time. It was late when we finished. I went to bed and left Britt to handle things on her own. I carefully placed Davy on the air mattress in the master bedroom. I knew he wanted to be with his mother, but she also needed sleep. There were many questions that I wanted answered, but we did not discuss. That's for later. Britt. The week went by slowly and quickly. I spent a lot of time with the kids and Cam. The girls each wanted to talk to me. Laura will be an excellent lawyer. She interrogated me mercilessly. Why did you come here? How long before you leave again? Do you live with a man at home? Do you want to be a mother again? And the most difficult question, why did you stop being a mother? She was a serious client and did not spare. I tried to be honest with her. I tried to explain that I made very bad decisions that affected the whole family, and for that I sincerely apologize. I told her that I had spent the past year trying to understand why I made the bad decisions I made and realized that I wanted to be with my family more than anything in the world. She was silent and did not give her vote for forgiveness. I'll have to wait for this. I'll have to earn it. Diana was much less critical, but really wanted to make sure I didn't leave again. Davy was himself. Mom, do you love us? I cried like a child in front of him. He hugged me and cried with me. At night, he often came to hug me. Diana, too. One night, I had my 2 children in bed, but not Laura. I'm so spoiled that I left my family like this. I'm such a spoiled wife that I was dishonest with my husband. I thought I loved him, so why did I do what I did to him? Cam. Britt had been here for a month, and it was January, time for the kids to go back to school and for me to go back to work full-time. I've been working from home as much as I can for the past month on my laptop and mobile phone. There came a time when Britt had to make a decision, and the kids and I had to make a decision too. I took the kids to the warehouse office we used to run our business. They settled into our conference room and did their homework. I brought the cans of orange drink and closed the door. Okay, we need a family meeting. Everyone quickly looked at me, raising their heads from their books and iPads. Laura said the obvious, "Mom isn't here. Should we wait until we get home?" "No, I want to talk about your mother. I want the four of us to talk about the last month she's been here. I want your opinion. Davy, let's start with you. I know what you'll say, but come on, tell me, and you're ugly to the sisters. It made everyone laugh. What do you think?" Davy took a sip of his orange drink. "Damn it, Dad. I want Mommy to stay with us. I don't want her to leave. Besides, I really hate this air mattress." As always, straight to the point. "Okay, one vote for your mother to stay." I looked at Diana. "Honey, did you like having Mommy here?" She looked at us all. "Yes, I really missed her and was glad when she came. I want her to stay." Those were 2 votes for their mother. I turned to Laura. "What's your decision?" For her, the jury was still not convinced. "What do you want, Dad?" "It's not about me. It's about your feelings for your mother." "But that goes for you too. If we want her to live with us, does that mean you'll leave?" Suddenly, Diana and Davy's faces became serious. They quickly turned and looked at me. I knew they weren't thinking about the situation from that angle. But Laura thought, "She is my incredibly mature daughter. She'll make a great prosecutor someday. If your mother stays, we will have a lot of very difficult problems to solve. Your mother has made a very good start by coming here." I paused. "Dad, do you still love her?" I looked at my 3 children. "I never stopped loving your mother. She did something that meant I couldn't be married to her anymore, but I always loved her." Prosecutor Laura continued, "Can you live with her again?" Before answering this question, I needed to take a deep breath and exhale. I knew that for the sake of my family, I had to try to repair my relationship with Britt. I knew Laura wanted her mother back too. I saw it in her and in the way her attitude towards Britt had softened over the past month. So I told them what I wanted to do. They smiled and came up to me for a group hug. We all cried. Later that night, "Laura, when we got home, we sensed something delicious was cooking, and as we walked in and unloaded our backpacks onto the dining room table to finish our homework, Mom peeked around the corner. 'Dinner will be ready in a while, so clear the table in 20 minutes and wash your hands.' Dad hasn't hugged or kissed Mom even once in the last month. He was very polite to her, but I never saw him actually touch her. The 3 of us muttered okay and continued. I watched my dad like a hawk. What happens in the next few minutes will be an indicator of what our future will be like. Before sitting down at the table, Dad went to the refrigerator and took 2 bottles of beer, opened them, and put them on the places where he and Mom were going to sit. Now, Dad never drinks beer with dinner, ever, unless it's a special case. We all put food on plates and started eating. We all looked at Dad and Mom and waited for something to happen. But that did not happen. Damn it, when will these 2 realize this? At some point, Dad looked at me, and I looked at him with my eyes wide open, like a laser beam. He said, "Come on, keep going." The whole dinner was nothing. Just chat about our new term at school and how the construction business is expanding rapidly and Dad will soon have to teach Diana plumbing and Davy electrical engineering. We kind of laughed about it. Everyone except Davy, he was trying to stay away from school this term as there was a new teacher in his math class and the work was very difficult to understand. While cleaning up after dinner, I even kicked my father in the shin and scowled at him. "When are you going to tell her? If not, then I will." He frowned in response. "Wait, Missy. I will do it in my own time and when I am ready." 15 minutes later. "Can I take you all to the dining room for a moment?" Everyone looked at me as we were spread out between the dining area and the living room, and Diana was in the bedroom she shared with her sister. Laura shouted, "Diane, get out of here now." "Okay, guys, I have a little announcement. Davy told me that he would really like to have his bed back. Although he really enjoys sleeping on the air mattress, he admitted to me today that since school is back, he needs to get a good night's sleep if he wants to learn to read, write, and solve simple math problems. All four of them looked at me and each other, trying to understand what was happening. I took a few steps towards Brit and stood next to her. "Could you come and share the master bedroom with me, for the sake of our son's education?" Brit covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks, and she stood up. I slowly walked up, and for the first time in more than a year, I hugged her. "I never stopped loving you. I want you to be my wife again, and I know that the children want you to be their mother again. They even voted today. It was unanimous." 2 years later. "Brit, I think I'll hear the last words. I really like Australia. Now I'm used to driving on the left side of the road. Only one slight turn of the fenders taught me to stay left on a roundabout. We moved to a bigger house, a little further out of town. There is space for a garden and some space for relaxation. This is good because the child is growing quickly. Nathan is about a year old now, and he crawls all over the place. Laura and Diana argue over who gets to push the stroller when we go outside. I thank my lucky stars that I was brave enough to board that plane just over 2 years ago. The airline delivered these large suitcases to me a week after I arrived in Melbourne. I hid them in the garage at another house until I moved into the master bedroom with Cam. They were unpacked immediately after that first night. I went to work part-time at a construction company. I work in interior design, helping clients choose the finishes they want for their homes. I got pregnant with Nathan right after Cam, and I started sharing a bedroom again. It wasn't long after we started sharing a bed again. The first couple of nights were a little awkward, but we got through it, and feeling him next to me was the best experience of my life. I was at home. At home with my husband and at home with my children. This is where I belonged. We got married right after I found out I was pregnant. Nathan. My parents came from the US to visit us and were there when Nathan was born. Laura is almost 15, Diana is 13, and Davy, my idiot, is 10. I thank those very lucky stars that I was able to figure out what was important to me and to my family. I overcame the tragedy I created. My family went through this. This will never happen again. Why did I cheat on my husband and children? Well, it's complicated and simple at the same time. I did it because I thought it was what I wanted to feel good about myself as a woman. I did it because I thought I could separate that part of myself from real life. I did it because I thought I deserved it. I did it because I wanted control. Dean was easy to control. I did it because I thought it was indecent and it was my secret life. I did it because it was dangerous. I did it because I was stupid. I let my stupidity control me and gave in to the idea that I wanted thrills outside of marriage because I could have them. Where did this lead me? To loneliness. Thank God they helped me and I became wiser. Thank God I realized what was important in my life. Thank God I boarded that plane, risked being rejected, and came to my family. Thank God they still allowed me back into their lives. I don't want to think about what I would have done if they hadn't done it. I was able to turn this shit show around and turn my life back into something I can be proud of. I want my husband and children to be proud of me. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think. Click to the next one. 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 Click to the